around the community, which can't be used now, but with the new sign-on with Nissan and the electric car proposal for here in Tucson, we're going to be seeing a lot more of those. So it's very, very exciting, and how timely to have Chris Paine here. I hope he's going to talk a little bit about why GM did kill the electric car and so forth. He was the director, as you know, of the now classic documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car?, working on a sequel called The Revenge of the Electric Car, which is a good thing, yes. It's a good lesson in how you can make a film, do some research, make a film, and become an activist in an area that has a great impression on the population. I'm not going to bore you with details about his life. He's owned some businesses. He graduated from Colgate in 1983, which makes him, in my position, a kid, since I stopped teaching in the 80s. But I'll let him tell you that, and you can read in your program the more details about his life and his business acumen. But what we want to do is hear from Chris. So Chris Paine, Revenge of the Electric Car.
Okay, well, thank you for coming out on a very nice day outside. My sister and my nieces live here, so it's really always fantastic to arrive in Tucson when it's been raining and so clear. So this is a bit of an experiment for me. I haven't really spoken about this next film at all. I wanted to show the trailer from the last film. Of course, that trailer is 3 years old. But I watched it the other day I was preparing for a trip to Israel, and the last line of that movie, this may be the biggest blunder the car makers ever made. And the GM's going bankrupt. They're all putting their hands out everywhere. So, that's obviously a lucky. We made kind of a risky call in going that far at the end of our film, but it is amazing how quickly the world changes. And I like to think of that as actually a cause for hope, that if things can change that quickly that direction, things can change that quickly the other direction. And maybe that's what we're in right now. So I attempted to cobble together a PowerPoint, and if my design team was involved in this, they would cringe at my efforts, but you can probably handle it. And I may switch off the PowerPoint to show you a couple of clips, and at the end, I'm going to show you a 2-minute investor trailer for Revenge of the Electric Car. This film is still at least a year out. We're in what I call the beginning of Act 2. Act 1 is when it's all hope. The world's getting really great. Electric cars are coming. Act 2, oil prices go back down. The massive recession hits. Environmental values are being questioned a little bit. Some of the car companies are having trouble. But I'm very confident that we are getting ready for Act 3 when the electric car makes a resurgence. And that's the story we've been tracking. So I'll show a little bit of that at the end. In the meantime, I'm going to attempt to port this. So this is my first electric car. Those of you from the 70s will recognize the Hot Wheels of the day. Wasn't it funny that the Mattel thought that the best way to show electricity for a car is inside of a gas pump? And they called it the juice machine. And it's part of the massive psychological shift that we all need to sort of go through as a society to think about how other ways to power our cars. That's a slide that shows electric cars on other planets. That's one on the moon, and that's one on Mars, proving that there's more electric cars on more planets than there are gas cars. Of course, without our beautiful oxygen to burn and destroy, you can't have a gasoline car. So electric cars, of course, were here 100 years ago, and they had a run of it then. They were here 10 years ago briefly, and I think we're getting ready for them to come back. And the last part of my journey was in the 70s. Dr. McCready died last year. He co-designed the EV1 for GM, and what he's really famous for was really showing the world, as other great engineers have, that you can do more with less. And this is from the early 70s when I was a kid, and he had a bicycle-powered plane that he flew over the English Channel. And Paul was always ahead of the cycle. I like to always honor him in my talks. The last thing he told to me before he passed on was that the great thing about electric cars, Chris, is not that their efficiency and all the rest of it, but that they can stabilize the utility system. We all carry a battery system on our car. That way, when we're at peak power during the day, during the air conditioning, you give permission to the utility to borrow some of your power for an hour so they stabilize the grid, and suddenly we have more energy security. So, typical Paul, ahead of the curve. So, I've been driving electric cars now for almost 12 years. The one on the left is my EV1, and the one on the right is my RAV4 EV. The EV1 had lead-acid batteries, and that car only went like maybe 65 miles. And I had a Ford Explorer in those days, and I said, well, I'll maybe drive that EV once in a while, but 65 miles, what can you do with that? And of course, it turns out that we drive 30 miles a day maximum, most people, and so as a commuter car, it was really perfect. And it began my love affair with electric cars. I still have my RAV4 from Toyota. Nickel metal batteries, goes 100 miles. The GWP in LA now has those cars in their fleets with 150,000 miles on it, no battery problems. I've never taken in my car for service. One of the issues for electric cars, of course, is that it challenges the repair industry, since they don't use brakes very much because you're regenerative braking whenever you step on the brakes, and there's hardly any parts. I think like 10% of the parts of an internal combustion engine. So it definitely changes the business model for what a car is. I hope in our brief presentation today I can kind of share some of the alternate ways to think about electric cars that have been shared with me. And at the end we'll take a few questions if we have time. So the title of my brief little talk is 24 Reasons Why Electric Cars Are Coming Back with Digressions and Flashbacks in Alphabetical Order. And 24 reasons because it's an alphabet. Asthma. Asthma and air pollution are the reason that electric cars were put in the road in California and to a lesser extent in Arizona in the early 90s. 1 in 4 children have asthma or lesions in their lungs, as our film talks about, from living in places like LA and Phoenix and any urban area where you have a lot of fast car traffic. That's a huge number. And when you stack an internal combustion engine car up against a hybrid vehicle or a plug-in hybrid or an EV, you're just getting a lot less pollution when you're dealing with electric cars. And we can talk about coal later because, of course, that's the big asterisk in all this. And so the electric cars are still, won't be the EV one this time, might be the GM Bolt or one of these beautiful conversions or Zen cars or all of the above. Great way of tackling air pollution. B is for bankruptcy. You can bet that for all the pain that we're all suffering watching these guys just go through the last of their money, it is a good story point for the next film. Especially watching them all drive up to Washington in their electric cars and say, "Oh, see, we love electric cars." And my favorite piece on this was the SNL piece on the bailouts. I don't know if you saw this, but Saturday Night Live ran this piece. It was a parody of the hearings, and you can't read the chart there, but the plan for the bailout was the first amount of money you have to give us in January, the second amount of money you give us in June. The plan was just how much money you have to give them for how long. So anyway, I think it's such a serious issue, it's almost hard to joke about because there's so many jobs attached to the auto industry, and I don't really believe, as much as we had cause with the car companies to be upset, that the right thing is to totally witch hunt that. We've got to find out ways to do soft landing. So B is for batteries. That is a Tesla battery pack there, lithium-ion battery pack. And I think someone probably knows better than me, there's over 5,000 AA lithium batteries inside that. And that Tesla car, which we'll see a little bit later, goes over 200 miles on a charge. And battery technology, since we made the first film, has improved. Lithium-ion and lithium other chemistry batteries are becoming cheaper, more energy dense. They're figuring out ways to recycle them better. It's really, I think, the killer app for transportation, at least for smaller vehicles. Carbon, C, obviously, we're